Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I hope that you are all doing well. I love doing these live streams, they're always a ton of fun. And I'm excited to talk with you all and let you know what I've been watching, both screen and stage. It's always fun. And I have the chat room open so you can put in your comments. And there's a super chat if you have something you want to ask me. I'd be happy to answer it as long as it's applicable to kind of what we're talking about. It's very exciting right now for me in my career because I've had the incredible opportunity to fill in for Steve Sales at the movie show. And I didn't realize when they asked me to do this that he had never missed a show in 35 years. Unbelievable. I had no idea because I had subbed once for them for Andy last year for Inside Out 2 discussion. And then I'd come on as a guest a number of times, try to keep that relationship and keep that going. And I learned so much when I get to be a part of that. And I think it's a lot of fun to get to be on the radio. I love that experience. And the more practice I get in the rhythms of it and how you kind of have to talk about things is a good thing for me. But anyway, and so when they asked me, I was super excited, even though I'm sad that the first, Steve, I want him to be healthy, of course, but it's a cool opportunity, and I'm honored that they thought of me, and so it's actually going to be a couple of weeks that I'm going to be filling in on Fridays on the movie show on KSL. So you definitely should check that out. I would really appreciate it if you listened and you just let them know, oh, we like having Rachel on. We like her on the movie show. That would be super cool. So big honor, very exciting thing for my career. When I was in college, I was a big fan of film criticism, big fan of writing it, reading it. But I never really thought that I could like be a critic. That never even kind of occurred to me. But one time they were having a discussion on the movie show about this film Nicholas Nickleby with Anne Hathaway, and they asked, why aren't more people seeing this? And I called in to say, like, the reason why more people aren't seeing it is because it's only at the Broadway in Salt Lake. So how can you see it if it's not playing anywhere? And that was kind of my point. And Doug Wright, who was the host for many years, he said, I want you to see it and then call back with your review. And so I did, and I called back with my review. And so to think that now I would be a host for multiple weeks is really incredible. And I'd had kind of a rough summer, having to get a new air conditioner, which cost over $5,000, and having some frustrations with the podcast because we had such a good June and for Hallmarkies podcast, and then July just like tanked. It was way less than June, so it was just like this roller coaster of emotions. And so then now to get this opportunity, it's just really, really perfect timing for me. And because I just felt I kind of needed that bump in to just not get too frustrated. And that's the thing with being a freelancer, is that it is such a roller coaster ride, that just when you think things are going great and things are looking up, then boom, and then something will happen, and you get a new opportunity, a new thing, and it's just always evolving. You can never be too comfortable when you're doing what I do. And so yeah, it's very exciting. And like I said, if you all could listen to the movie show on Friday mornings, or it's on their website, I would really appreciate it. And just to let them know that the more positive feedback they get about Rachel on KSL movie show, the better. So if you want to help me in my career, then I would really appreciate that. And we also have the Patreon. That's a great way you can support me, and you get to be part of watch longs and cool patron events, and you get to have early releases, bonus releases, a lot of cool things, I think, for being a patron. So I'd really appreciate you checking that out. But yeah, let's dive in. So let's see. We did have some comments here. We've got, how would you feel if Disney makes a live action remake of Frozen? I feel like it's almost inevitable. I think the only thing that would maybe stop them is the fact that they don't want to repeat when they've got Frozen 3 and Frozen 4. But then again, they're doing the Moana remake when they just had Moana 2. They're going to probably have Moana 3, Moana 4, whatever. And so that didn't seem to stop them. I think that we'll see how this Moana remake does. If it's huge and really popular, then that would be, I think, even added motivation to then do a Frozen live action remake. I would love, if they were going to do it, I would love for them to apply some of the songs from the Broadway musical. They've never done that in these live action remakes. They've never taken the songs from the musical, the Broadway, and I'm not sure why, especially with Beauty and the Beast. Like, why not use If I Can't Love Her? Why write a new song? I mean, Evermore is a beautiful song, but I just don't really understand why they didn't just embrace the Broadway musical. But there might be, I'm sure there's some kind of behind the scenes, but the songs for the Broadway musical are so strong and beautiful, like Monster. And so I think that would be neat if they added those songs from the Broadway musical, if they did a remake. But yeah, I mean, you know how I feel about these live action remakes. They're not usually for me, but at least I guess with Frozen, it's mostly humans. It's not, the only, aside from Olaf, there's not mystical creatures or things like that. So it's probably a little bit easier to do. But that's how I feel about that. So we have glad I'll be seeing Bad Guys 2 next week. Yeah, so a lot of exciting things happening about Bad Guys 2. I'm actually interviewing the director today, which is pretty fun. It's just going to be a real short. I only have 5 minutes, so it's not like a podcast, but it is what it is, and I'm excited for it and a chance to talk to him. I've actually seen it, but I'm under embargo, so I can't talk about it. But I did enjoy it. So yeah, something to look forward to. I'm going to see it on the big screen. We have a screening on Saturday. So, I look forward to that. Okay. Here we go. Let's see here. How would you feel if Universal Pictures Trimmings make live and remakes of Turbo, Home, Trolls, and The Boss Baby? Okay, The Boss Baby, that would be completely ridiculous. You can have a CGI baby in a suit. I mean, come on. That's absurd. Trolls, I wouldn't be surprised if they're considering that, making a realistic Trolls movie, because those are just so popular. That would be for me. I don't like the message. I'm just not a Trolls fan. So no. Turbo, I just don't think that's popular enough. I don't think anybody wants that. No. I don't like the fake animals, the hyper realistic animals. Home, that's one of the worst DreamWorks movies. Why would I want that? So no to all of those. Okay. So since we last spoke, since my last live stream, I saw Smurfs, and this. Oh, let me turn that off. So I saw Smurfs, and the thing that's frustrating about this movie is it really felt like 9 different screenplays all bunched together. There's like times it feels like a musical, and there's like whole songs, and then like there won't be a song for a long time. There's times when it's in live action. There's times when it's trying to be Inside Out, and then and then it kind of abandons that. And then there's times when it feels really pre-K, and then they have some like adult humor, which felt weird. And it's trying to be really self-important, but then it wants to be like an illumination movie, and kind of the cheap jokes. And so it just was a mess. I wouldn't be surprised if Smurfs ends up on a lot of worst of the year lists this year. So too bad. I think the animation was pretty good, was decent. And it's not like, I wouldn't say it's on the level. It's not like an Emoji Movie level bad. It's not like on that level, but it is pretty bad, and definitely smarter decision to wait and see Bad Boys 2 next week for sure. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do as far as family movie night this week, because I was going to do a Christmas movie for Christmas in July and do Pete's Christmas, which is a Hallmark movie, but I was pretty underwhelmed by it. It's not awful, but I was hoping, because it's about a teenager and not that many Hallmark movies are about teenagers, that it would fit for Teen Movie Month. But I was just kind of underwhelmed by it. I didn't love it, and I don't know. So I might, we'll see, I might end up talking about Happy Gilmore. I don't know. We'll see with the new movie coming out. So that's a little up in the air. Might be something different this weekend. So next, I saw What If. This actually 15 years old. This is the 15-year anniversary of the faith-based film What If, and I watched it because I had basically like a junket opportunity, and so I watched it, and it's a sweet movie. It's kind of like a take on Family Man, the Nicolas Cage movie. The executive, he wakes up one day and he's married to his like high school girlfriend, has this family, and they kind of add a faith element to all of this. And I ended up interviewing Kevin Sorbo, which was kind of an interesting experience because, he has very strong political opinions, and, that makes me a little nervous. But, we were just talking about the movie. And so I felt like it was an interesting experience, and something that stretched me a little bit. I think I handled the interview quite well, and I kept things on track and just talking about the movie. So, I don't know. It was an interesting experience. So that's over at Hallmarkies Podcast if you want to check that out. Okay. Then I saw the Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight. This is a film about the Zimbabwean War of Independence in Australia. And it's focused on this little girl and the struggles that surround her. She's very, very cute, and the girl was quite good, but it is pretty brutal, this movie. It is. I don't know if it handles the jumps in tone as well as it could. And there's just some stuff that just is frankly very difficult to watch. There's child abuse portrayed. It's happening, portrayed in that sense, like it's part of the story. There's child trafficking, war, violence. It's just pretty brutal, but it's all told through the lens of this little girl, which makes it even more brutal. So it's definitely not something to watch on like a Friday night with your friends, this one. But it is well made, it's well acted, and I do think there's something to understanding other people's experiences and having compassion for that experience. But it's a tough watch, and I don't think it necessarily balanced the tone as well as I would have liked. So, it's a interesting experience. One thing that was interesting this last week, because I was doing the movie show and going to be covering, I know what we did last summer, I had to see the original film. And I asked some friends, I said, do you need, who had seen the movie, I said, do you need to see the original to understand this new one? Because, like Final Destination, for example, I saw the new one. I hadn't seen any of the others. 28 years later, I saw the new one. I hadn't seen any of the others. And I was fine with both of those. And you would be fine. Like, it's not, it's so, the new movie is so generic that you would be fine. You'd be able to understand it. But I still think that that there's quite a few Easter eggs, and because you have the characters coming back, I think that in this case it would help a lot to have seen the original film. So I'm glad that I did, and and now I've seen it, check it off my list. I think it's the original I think is a pretty decent little slasher movie. I particularly liked anything that had to do with Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. And there's this whole long section where she believes she's being chased. She's always kind of looking over her shoulder. And I think that is a really strong piece of filmmaking. And it captures, I think, as a single woman, that there can definitely be a fear of, like, if somebody follow me, if somebody, like, that vulnerability is real. And I think that a horror movie can get a long way in sort of capitalizing on that, taking advantage of that. And so that whole section of the movie was, I think, pretty effective. Some of the other parts were less effective, more generic. But, like, so overall, I know you did last summer, the original film. I thought it was a pretty effective slasher. And so now we have this sequel. I would say that this is also, like, pretty decent. Like, it's not a great movie. The script is pretty clunky, but I would say that also a little bit about the first one. It's a little bit clunky, but, like, this is more so. But I thought that the kills were actually pretty creative. Like, I am new to the slasher genre, so take everything with a grain of salt, but I thought there were some creative ones. And I thought that the cast was pretty likable. It was extremely predictable, extremely generic, but for this kind of legacy sequel, I thought it was decent. I did. So that's where I have I know what you did last summer. It's like, if you want to see a formula slasher movie with some likable actors in this, then it's a decent watch. Not like great or anything special, but decent. Okay, so then I saw Edington, and Edington is a really hard movie to analyze because I felt so torn about it. I was really enjoying it the first hour or so, maybe 45 minutes, an hour. The whole setup and the portrayal of COVID was, I said in my thing on movie show that it was oddly comforting to see that portrayed. Like, I can't think of a better portrayal of that time period than in the beginning of this movie. It felt so authentic, and it was like, oh my gosh, we all lived through this. We all dealt with it, and just the frustrations of trying to breathe through those horrible masks, and then, like, being called horrible names and being treated terribly, and then the all the tension with everything with the protests, and just the time period was so tense and weird and surreal, and I thought they captured that so well. But then, like, it kind of loses its way as the story goes on and just becomes more and more sort of unhinged, and I felt like it, and I felt like that Ari Aster didn't have a handle on what he was trying to say, what he was trying to do. And it seemed, I said in my review that it felt like propaganda with nothing it was propagandizing. There was no real message. And I guess that could be intriguing, but it just feels like if you're going to have Black Lives Matter, you're going to have anti-vaxxers, you're going to have all of these buzzwords and political touch points, and then come away with it like morally and politically ambiguous. I think that's asking a lot of your audience. I think that's asking a lot that to not have something that you're trying to say. I think is a mistake. And it kind of reminded me of Civil War in that way. But Civil War was about a fictitious country, so it was a little bit more understandable, but especially in an election year to like not try to say something, I think this is a mistake. And then, but this, it is definitely more pointed to our nation in this time in our nation's life. But like, again, it kind of felt like propaganda without anything it was propagandizing, which leaves you a little empty. It leaves you a little frustrated. Not that you wanted to be preached to, but when everything in the movie is leading you to certain that's a certain message is going to be kind of revealed or made, or the story is going to lead that way, and then it just kind of is all over the place. It leaves you feeling kind of muddled. It leaves you feeling kind of confused with what you just experienced. So let's see here. I've got some. I was driving, so I couldn't say while you talked about it, but I'd be very surprised if Smurfs made a lot of worst lists, mainly because I don't think many people will see it. Fair. But on the other hand, the people who are making those lists are critics who had to see it. So, you know, you're probably right. That's valid that like it won't be on that many worst lists of patrons, moviegoers, because they probably wouldn't have seen it. But most of the critics had to see it, and so it would be on a lot of their worst lists. I would not be surprised. So let's see here. So we have, you are so right about it, though. It felt like a mess, like they wanted it to be the next Trolls. Yeah, they wanted it to be the next Trolls, but they didn't like commit to sort of the music, or like Trolls at least kind of is about the music more. Okay, even I'm excited for Zootopia 2. That's going to be the big one. Speaking of the bad guys as well, they're already planning a third movie. Yep, they definitely are planning a third. You know that from watching the second movie. So, yeah, there we go. Even I'm excited for Zootopia 2. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Zootopia 2. I hope that they don't feel the need to have it be as much of a allegory as the first one. Here, I was just talking about, here's a morally, politically ambiguous film in Edington that really required that. But I don't think that Zootopia 2 requires that. I think it could just be a new case that they're going on and getting to know the world more and getting to know the characters more. And so I think that would be a mistake. I think that worked for the first movie, but if this one feels like a children's allegory to try to teach, I think that would be a mistake. But we'll see. So we have the Cancel Smurfs 3 was going to be about Smurfs time traveling back to 1878. What? 1878? Okay. Like post-industrial Smurf world. I mean, pre-industrial Smurf world. I can't imagine that. So we have, I still defend The Lost Village. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. That is an underrated film. And I also will always still defend Smurf The Lost Village. Yes, far superior to this new movie. Okay, so then we have a little indie film called Magnetosphere. And this, I'm actually going to be talking to the director. It's kind of interesting because so last year there was a film called Musica, which was about a person with synesthesia, where you are really sensitive to particularly sound, but your senses are heightened. And I loved Musica so much. I actually interviewed Rudy Mancuso, who's the director, and it's like loosely biographical. I loved Musica so much. It was so creative. It was so exciting. It was so visceral, and spoke to this problem that many people face with synesthesia. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sorry, but anyway, so I was intrigued by this Magnetosphere. by its story because it's about a teen that's dealing with synesthesia and her experiences, and particularly like putting on this play. There's like this town play that they're doing. Some of the adult parts of it didn't quite work for me, and her kind of friendship with this older actor didn't really work. I felt like they should have made the character older, that some of the dialogue would have made a little bit more sense. But I really liked the way they showed the synthesia and showed her the way her brain works with they have some animation, some other things, and it overall had a nice feel about it. I enjoyed it. And I think that if you're looking for an indie that is cute, then it's a decent one to watch. Let's see here. So here we go. The trailer for Zootopia looks bomb. So yeah, I feel like I've seen a trailer and that it looked pretty fun. You know, the trailers for the original Zootopia were legendary. They did such a great job marketing that film. Bedtime books. I wonder when the first full trailer for Zootopia 2 will come out. Yeah, that'll be interesting. They had one in front of Smurfs. Was that? I think it was just the teaser trailer though. The teaser trailer had no dialogue. I'm talking like a story trailer. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't kept up on the trailers. So there we go. Okay. So then I saw a little indie called Oh Hi. And this is supposed to be kind of a dark comedy, I guess you'd say, about this woman goes on this weekend with her boyfriend. She's a young woman. She goes on this weekend trip with her boyfriend, and he is like not as committed to the relationship as she is. So she decides to handcuff him to the bed and basically kidnap him for this weekend to try, because she's so angry that he's not as committed in the relationship as she is. So I really disliked this movie. I thought it really fell flat for me on pretty much every level. I think that these two stars are quite good, Molly Gordon and Logan Lerman, but I didn't buy like a single moment of this movie. And the fact that it was supposed to be a comedy, like it would be one thing if this was like Misery, like a younger version of Misery, then maybe I could have seen that working. But they take it like pretty straight, but then it's supposed to be funny, which was just bizarre. And like Misery does have some funny elements to it, but it's like a horror movie. This is not trying to be a horror movie at all. And I think you're supposed to be sympathetic to this woman with what she's doing to this person she supposedly loves is absolutely absurd. And then when her friends come over and they don't immediately call the police or get him free from the bed or talk some sense into her is ludicrous. So it'd be one thing if it was just the two of them and this was kind of a two-hander, but then when more people are brought in and the handcuffing continues is absolutely insane, but not in like a fun way. I didn't think. I just really disliked it. I thought it was, if you had this exact same story and it was a man doing this to a woman, you would definitely not be able to call it a comedy. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. Okay, so then we have Shoshana. This is a period piece film about the 1930s and the like founding of Israel. That is the turmoil, the 1930s. With British control over Palestine precarious and conflict inevitable, everyone is forced to choose a side from. So, this movie, it stars mostly people I'd never heard of before. Irina Starenbaum, Douglas Booth, Harry Melling. And I think this was pretty good. It really focuses the most on the relationship between these two people and that are on different sides. It's what's her name? Set in 1938, the film takes place in Tel Aviv, where tensions are high as the British, under the League of Nations mandate, attempt to maintain order in a city with a mixed Arabian and Jewish population. Thomas Wilkin, a British deputy superintendent of the Palestinian police, becomes romantically involved with Shoshana, the daughter of Ber Borakov, a co-founder of the Zionist labor movement. So we have Douglas Booth playing Tom Wilkin and Irina Starshenbaum as Shoshana Barakov. We have Henry Melling from Harry Potter. He's in this. He has a role. And I think that these two, Douglas Booth and Irina Starshenbaum, have really good chemistry. And this movie is really a relationship movie between the two of them. They have, and like what they're going to do. Can they be together? It almost has like a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet quality in that way. I thought the acting was really good. It can be brutal. Like there's multiple scenes where people are just like walking down the street and just going to shoot somebody in the head. I mean, it's war. I get that, but it was handled very shockingly, you know. So it definitely is a shocking movie in some ways, but I thought that the relationship and the chemistry and the overall message of kind of what are they going to do, which side are they going to go on, the theme, I guess you could say, the theme was well done. So I would recommend this. I think it's worth a watch. Shoshana. Obviously, it's going to be triggering for some people because it does come from a Zionist, quote unquote, perspective about the founding of Israel. So there we go. Then I saw the movie Fixed. This doesn't come out for a couple of weeks. It's on Netflix. It will be on Netflix. So this is directed by Gendy Tartakovsky. And I swear I've heard about this movie since I started the channel. I mean, it feels like this thing has been in development for a decade. Like I've just heard about it so long. I remember it was like 2016, 2017, doing animated news episodes and talking about Fixed. I swear it's been that long. And so it's finally come out. I'm not opposed to R-rated animation. I can handle it. But this movie was absolutely atrocious. I hated it. It might be one of the worst anime films I've ever seen. It was so repetitive in the jokes. It was like all that they had was dog testicle jokes. That was it. Like one after another. Like I guess you could make a funny dog sex joke, but just 2 hours of them just felt unbearable. I wanted to die. It was brutal. It just wasn't funny. It wasn't likable. It's kind of like The Secret Life of Pets, but obviously like taken to this really raunchy state and just not funny and just repetitive and annoying. The characters were all very annoying. I hated this. Maybe this could have worked as like a little short 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Then maybe that would have been sort of refreshing and been kind of a little bit of like a joke. But then they tried to tell this love story between him and this other dog. where they have an unbelievable scene about mating, the dog's mating, and the dog kind of gets, I mean, the dog gets bred, but with this highfalutin snobby dog, and but they kind of treat it as if the dog is getting raped, because I guess from their perspective that's kind of what it is, but like it's dogs and it's breeding, and like it's, but so I guess you could make jokes about that, but like, but then they have, I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to explain it. I guess wouldn't want to spoil it. But the way they handled that whole scene was just so off-putting and gross. And it was just not funny. Funny saves all, as I always say. I didn't laugh hardly at all. It was painful. So let's see here. Did it remind you of Strays? Yes, which I also hated. So I mean, I guess take this with a grain of salt. They do try to get some of those like emotional moments that Strays tries to have, but I hated that too. So this just might not be my genre. So we'll see what people think. Let's see. I do want to check out Fix mainly because of Gandhi. Yeah, I mean, the same. I love Gandhi. I really do. I love Gandhi. He's incredibly talented. I have a feeling that this just kind of lost its way in production. Again, because it was around for so long. It was talked about for so long that I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of got out of his control. I don't know. I have no idea, but it was awful. I hated it. Let's see here. How would you feel if Disney makes a live action remake of Wish? No, I don't think there's just nothing there. Like the story is so weak, the songs are so weak. Like there's nothing to remake. Like it's just, you would have to completely do something completely new with new songs, new story, new, there's just nothing there. So no. Okay. So then we have one last thing I wanted to talk about. So for Hallmarkies podcast, we're going to be covering, there's a 3-part movie series coming called Providence Falls. And I had the chance to watch the first one yesterday, and I'm really excited about it. I think people are going to love this show. It's very, or these three, it's a 3-part movie series. They're going to love this. It is so entertaining. I guess it's based on a book, but it's a really clever idea of this man who gets the chance to come back to Earth after various kind of drop dead diva, but he gets to come back to Earth, but he's going from being in the 1800s to being in current times. But all of the people that he was working with have been reincarnated and are now also on Earth. So he has to kind of help the people from his timeline, help them now in 2025. So he knows all this information about them, but he's also in this new world, in this new environment. And so what's going to happen? There's a great cast, very young cast for Hallmark. Katie Stevens is the girl, and then Lachlan Quambury is really the lead of the series, and he's quite good. And then it has Evan Roderick as a competing love interest for Katie's character, and her, and so this was very good. I liked it a lot. I liked the acting a lot. I liked the story a lot. It was very creative. It was very well done. It was younger. I think that if you like just entertaining sort of time travel, it had some Outlander vibes at time, of course, with the time travel, and the lead girl is like Scottish. So I recommend this Providence Falls series. It starts on August 2nd on Hallmark, and there's 3 movies. I really enjoyed this first one, so definitely something to look out for. So let's see here. We have, Fixed doesn't sound like a movie for me. Yeah, avoid it at all costs. It was really bad. Okay, that is everything that I'm going to talk about as far as movies. Let's talk about stage. Okay. Okay, so I saw Footloose at Hale Center Theater in Sandy. And this was interesting. So it's an interesting thing being a theater critic for community theater as opposed to Broadway, these kinds of things like most theater critics are. Um, Being a theater critic for community theater is a little bit trickier because you have to kind of know like what kind of critique is appropriate for what venues, right? There's so many different layers. That's why I say being a theater critic, I think, is a lot harder than being a film critic because film criticism is a lot more like simple. I mean, there are obviously lots of factors that go into making a film great. You know, there's cinematography, there's script, there's acting, there's so many things. But at the end of the day, film criticism is just kind of what I thought about it and do I recommend it. Whereas theater criticism is a lot more complex because there are so many factors that go into the overall experience. Plus, I'm not really like recommending to people should they see this particular play as I am kind of well, I shouldn't even say that. I am recommending if they should see this particular play, but I'm also kind of giving my recounting of the evening's unique experience, right? And because even if they go see that play, it's not like the movie where they're going to see this same thing that I saw. They're going to have their own unique experience. So it's also kind of sharing this is what you might experience, this is what is out there to experience, all that kind of thing, and also kind of archiving, chronicling what I experienced. So anyway, it's just like it's just more complicated than reviewing a movie, which is so. But anyway, so I went to see this Footloose, and I was frustrated by it because it was so well done, incredible staging, set pieces, directing. Particularly holding out for a hero was so much fun the way they did it. And so I really enjoyed all this stuff. But the Ren that I saw was not having a good night. I don't know if it was just like a weeknight that normally he's a lot stronger. I don't know. He was out of breath for most of the scenes, which is a problem for a show that is about dancing. And I think that the I think that the problem is that he's also in practically every single scene of the show. So if he's having a bad night, it really pulls down the entire experience because he's the lead character in almost every scene. So it was frustrating and I didn't really know how to deal with it because I usually in my theater reviews, I usually don't call out individual actors for community theater because it's like they're doing it usually for free or a little compensation to call somebody out individual. I usually say something more like the acting could be improved, something more broad. But in this case, it really was his performance that like it wouldn't have been honest. It wouldn't have been accurate to have said the acting was bad because the acting wasn't bad. It was just the one performance that wasn't working. That was the only honest way to say it. And so and the tickets are quite expensive to this. So I feel like it's on sort of a semi-professional level a professional critique is deserved. So I wrote up my critique, and I knew that some people would be upset with me, and some people were upset with me. Not the actor, I have to say. I never heard any feedback from him, but from some other people. And so I had the chance to get to see it again, but to see the other cast, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday cast, which was very kind of Hale, very impressive that they would do that. So I went and saw it, and it was way better. I mean, the Ren this time just was on top of his game. He was such a good actor. He was such a good dancer, and so I had to then write an additional review and kind of explained my thought process behind reviewing community theater, what I'm looking for, and that what it means when I give certain critiques. I was really proud of that review. I think it was well done and well written. So if you want to, read something of mine, you should check that out. I think I did a pretty good job with that. Let me find it. So if you especially want, I tried to read as many of the comments as I can, but especially if the comments are kind of repetitive, then I won't necessarily. If you especially want me to respond to your comment, then you can do the super chat. Okay, but here's what I said. So I said here that I knew sitting down to write it, some would be upset with what I had to say. I've been reviewing community theater long enough to know that singling out a particular actor some would take as rude or unkind. It is something that in general I've learned to avoid in reviewing community theater, as most of the actors and crew are volunteering their time. In the end, what is basically a community goodwill project should be treated as delicately as possible. However, this semi-professional company like Hale Center Theater, I would like to assume the people on and behind the stage have some degree of professional aspirations and desires. I know for my career ambitions, it can still sting to get feedback, but I try and push those responses away because unbridled and perhaps unearned praise could not help me to be a better critic and podcaster. Certainly, if I'm going to be a critic, I need to be open and responsive to criticism myself. For people less accustomed to criticism and the process of being critiqued, it can, however, be a quite jarring and uncomfortable experience. This is why I tried to temper my criticism with phrases like, maybe he was having an off night. I certainly haven't seen every night, and I don't know the backstory to that particular performance and what might have been happening behind the scenes. I'm by no means saying the actor is incapable of a great performance or making a judgment on their work ethic or talent in general. I'm simply trying to give an honest assessment of what I witnessed on that night from that cast. And that's the thing. So when I give a negative review of something, it's not being unkind. It's not being rude. At least I try my hardest to not be rude. I'm not saying the people are bad people. I'm not saying that it's a stain on their reputation to have made this. I'm saying I'm just trying to give an honest response to what I experienced on that night, that day. And so when I give a high praise, that's also not really being kind. It's just being honest. And I think that that's important. And I can improve in my tact, in my writing, certainly in my vocal presentation and things like this. That's why I do things like this, is to get more practice. But it's not being kind or unkind. It's just trying to be honest. And yes, I don't give the personal critiques anymore as far as community theater because it's volunteer. I usually try to keep them more broad, but for something that I think is semi-professional or professional, I feel like that's the most helpful. And so anyway, that was an interesting experience with that review. So there you go. Okay, what else have I seen? I'm not going to read. Like I said, if you have comments that you want to be read, then you can do them as super chats. Okay. I will read as many as I can. Okay, so let's see what else. Let's see here. Like I will read, as like I said, especially if the comments are feeling kind of repetitive and asking me the same basic question about live action remakes over and over again. But if you really, really want me to answer, then send it as a super chat. Okay. By the way, I heard they're doing My Melody and Kurami stop motion series. Huh, I don't know anything about that. So that's interesting. So cool. Okay. So then I saw this was really fun. I saw went to this thing called Meanwhile Park. This is in Salt Lake, and it was started during the pandemic. This guy basically decided to stage plays in his backyard. And so he set up, there's like like the patio, cement patio, and then there's chairs, and probably like maybe 25 or some odd chairs, and you go and they have drinks and treats, and you watch these two little short plays about 30 minutes each, and it was just such like a fun community experience. I enjoyed both the plays. They're both kind of queer positive love stories, like darker kind of comedies, and I think that the acting was really good. So it wasn't just the gimmick, but also it was actually like a good little place, good shorts. But it was a very, very cool experience. And I was saying how I think it could be like a fun date night to do something like that. And I'd heard about this, but I finally got a chance to go, and that was very cool. I love authentic theater experiences, community experiences like that. Okay. Then I saw The Lightning Thief. This was at Cottonwood Heights, and I thought that this was probably about as good as you can do this musical. I think the musical is very weak as far as the book. The story doesn't have like good narrative flow to it. It'll introduce a character and an idea, and then we'll abandon that idea for like different characters and ideas, and then all of a sudden that character will be back, and we'll be back to that idea. And I just think the book is very weak. The script is weak. The songs are very forgettable. So this is not a strong musical, in my opinion. But I thought that they did everything that they could with it. The use of puppets and the use of the just cool artistry in the storytelling. They also used a lot of dance. They had acrobatics. They actually had an acrobatic team, and so that is really cool. And so that was, even though I don't really like that show that much, it was still pretty cool to see. Okay, then I saw Footloose again, second time. And I saw Catch Me If You Can. This was at Centerpoint Legacy. And I love this Broadway musical. I think it's very underrated. I think the songs are so catchy. I think it's like an entertaining friendship story. And Centerpoint is an incredible local theater. They do such a good job. I like this so much. I'm actually seeing it again on Friday with the other cast. The talent in this cast that I saw was great, super engaging, great singers. The choreography was really fun. The ensemble, they did such an incredible job with the set. The sort of 1960s aesthetic of it all was really, they had these panels coming in and out with this. It looked like it could have been on Mad Men. The costumes, whoever they have doing costumes at Centerpoint is unbelievable, and it's just entertaining. It's such a fun musical. I just find it very underrated. The songs are so good, and I really had a great time with it. Like I said, I'm seeing it again on Friday, so there you go. Then like I said, if you really want me to answer your question, then you can do the super chat. I'm not answering any more questions about live action remakes right now. Okay, but yeah, Catch Me If You Can was great. Then I saw Once Upon a Mattress at the Empress, and this was a lot of fun. The Empress is a very unique stage. They they have they have the stage on the ground, and then they have a higher stage up above, and then you're on two sides. So that's very interesting, but they were able to use it to its advantage to have the mattresses on the top platform and then all the way going down. So I thought that was a clever way of showing the mattresses. And I thought the cast was pretty strong. I particularly liked the Larkin and the Sir Harry. That was those were fun, those castings. And then the Queen was very villainous and enjoyable. And so I had a good time with that one. I think that was good. Okay, then I saw Mean Girls Junior at Draper Historic, and I couldn't believe that this was double cast because it was such a large cast. They had so they have 40 kids in both casts, 80 total, which is unbelievable to me. And I thought that they did a good job, especially on such a small stage, involving so many of the teens, and the ensemble scenes, ensemble dancing for like revenge party sort of things was really good. And the lead who was playing Katie was excellent. Like she had that vulnerability and like the awkwardness, but also the so she had that like nerdiness of Katie that Katie needs, but also a sort of believable as she becomes a plastic. It worked, and her singing was excellent. So very good. So let's see here. Then I saw My Brother Was a Vampire. This is a one-act play. It's going to be at Edinburgh Fringe. So if you're going to Edinburgh Fringe or Salt Lake Fringe, it's going to be both of those. And it's kind of annoying to me that I feel like, particularly with plays, they have lately, I've noticed quite a few having titles that don't really represent the play that well, like Case for the Existence of God. That play has almost nothing to do with God, nothing to do with spirituality. And so it leaves you kind of frustrated when you see it because it's like clickbait, but for plays. And this one, My Brother Was a Vampire, it had very little to do with horror or vampire. I mean, they throw out that word every once in a while, but it wasn't really a horror play, and it certainly wasn't a comedy as it was promised to be. But that doesn't mean it was bad. Like it's exploring this relationship between this brother and sister and their abusive parents, and it starts with them being old and then goes down to them being children, which was interesting. The acting was quite good. I had little nitpicks, little critiques here and there, but for something being workshopped and being tested, I think it was a solid, interesting experience to watch. I just would say to these playwrights, like, don't feel a need to give it these titles. Like, remember, some of the greatest plays ever written had really simple titles: Our Town, Doubt, Hamlet, Othello. Like, it doesn't have to be like some fancy title. So then lastly, I saw Phantom of the Opera at the Ruth. This is a teen edition, and I was completely blown away. Like, especially the Phantom and Christine were unbelievable. And it was interesting seeing the Phantom, because it's a high school student, like sort of smaller, younger, more frail. Like, I think that was like an interesting depiction of, I mean, just because he is a younger student, like it's teen edition. But it was an interesting juxtaposition with how I'm used to seeing the Phantom portrayed and how the character's written. So that was really cool. And the teens did an incredible job. Like, I was kind of blown away by what they offered. So that is the Phantom of the Opera. It was so good. And I have such nostalgia for Phantom of the Opera. It was the first musical I ever saw. I saw it with my grandma. And so it's always have a special place in my heart. So the teens did a great job with that. So that is everything that I saw stage and screen. Make sure that you check out KSL Movie Show Friday mornings. I'm going to be on for the next couple of weeks. I would really appreciate that. And if you can let them know, particularly on their Facebook for KSL Movie Show, if you can let them know, hey, we like you having Rachel on. We really enjoyed Rachel. Like that would be super cool. And I would really appreciate it. And like I said, we have the Patreon. Which you can get lots of cool benefits. You're going to be part of our watch alongs and get to hear from talent of how things are made, what's going on. So definitely make sure that you check out the Patreon. I also do bonus episodes, and you get to decide what I review for Family Movie Night. Try to make the Patreon as valuable as I possibly can. And then we have the merch store. We have lots of fun movie inspired merch. So definitely check that out. We have lots of cool stuff coming up on the channel. We've got Blind Spot. I'm actually recording that today. So that's always fun. We have we have a new episode, a special episode of Talking Disney that will shock all of you. That's a lot of fun. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.